Well, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Industrious Podcast. Thank you for tuning in wherever you get your podcasts, or if you're watching us on the Assessa YouTube channel, thank you for joining us. Today's guest, Mr. Chris Hendricks from Duncan Supply. Chris, welcome to the Industrious Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you introduce yourself and Duncan Supply to our listeners?
Sure. So my name's Christopher Hendricks. I am the president and CEO of Duncan Supply. I am a fourth-generation family member of the Duncan family. Duncan Supply is an HVAC, refrigeration, and food service wholesale distributor. We're based out of Indianapolis. We've got 10 locations right now. I have a new location opening here in about mid-October. So that'll be 10 branches in Indiana, one in eastern Illinois in Champaign.
Perfect. So in refrigeration, you didn't bring any cold beers with you?
I didn't think about that.
I mean, you had one job today. One job.
Last time, Vince said, hey, we'll have better beers.
That's
actually, I'm pretty sure that was the exact comment. Yeah, we'll have better beers next time.
It probably was. It was because it was more than a week ago. I don't remember.
That's fair.
All right, that's on me.
So we're 0 for 2.
0 for 2.
Awesome.
That's right.
That's a great way to wrap up a week.
Bingo.
Hashtag no beer.
So fourth generation family business. Did you grow up working, summers, things like that?
Sure. So, so being the fact that we do so much equipment moving, insurance was a big thing. So at that time, my great-grandfather who started the business had passed away before I was born. But my grandfather ran the business until about 2000. So growing up, I have 2 older brothers. Like, they were there when they turned 18 for a little while, but it was always insurance. If you can't be covered by insurance, you can't be here. So I knew everybody. Like, I was familiar. I was in the store. Everybody knew me, but I couldn't work until I turned 18. So, I come from the fourth generation has five of us in it. I've got 2 older brothers. I got 2 cousins. And when, I've listening to episode 1 of the Industrious Podcast, I heard you talk about, sometimes you kind of get that family guilt to come back into the business. And being the youngest, nobody else in my generation had a desire to be a part of it. My oldest brother always wanted to be a teacher, so he became a teacher. My middle brother was there for a while, but his passion was he was a collegiate football player, and so he loved that team atmosphere, that belonging to something bigger. And he ultimately decided after college, I want to be a fireman. So he works for IFD. 2 cousins that are now, one of them is here, but they didn't have the desire, the passion. So when I was 17, I was sitting in my grandparents' kitchen, and I knew that I had been accepted to IU. I was going pre-med. I wanted to get into physical therapy and athletic training. So my grandfather said, hey, if that's what you want to do, I'll support it. But can I give you another option, another path, if you're interested? And he said, we've got the company here, and my dad started it. I continued it. It's still continuing now. Your mother's there. Your aunt is there. If you want to take an interest, I'll make sure it's here. And if not, that's okay, but it's not going to leave our family. I will sell it before I die. So that was like, oh, there's that heavy burden that just came across. I thought, I don't truly, and mind you, I was 17. So I said, I don't truly know what we do. Like, I know what we do. I know what the products are, but I don't get it. So I'd have to figure that out. So I left that night, or that afternoon, and thought about it that night. And I came back to him the next day, and I said, look, I don't get it. But I know the people that work here, and I know the people that this has been their only job. I think in May, start of May, our counter manager in Indianapolis retired after 50 years. It's the only job he ever had. We have numerous people that work for us that 47 years, 45 years, 43 years.
Yeah, lifers, basically.
Lifers. Yeah. And that's majority of our population. They come, they stay. They are part of the family. And looking at our industry, more and more distributors started to pop up. It became a bigger thing. And said, if we sell it, I know what's going to happen to these people. They're either going to become a number, or they're going to have to find a new career. And I said, I don't want that to happen. I grew up with these people. So they're the reason I am making this decision. I'll find the passion later. I'll figure out what we really do later. But for them, this is why I'm here. So I shifted my major. I kind of geared things towards management and towards kind of an HR perspective. Knew that once I finished that, then I'll probably go back for an MBA or something later. I started working in our Bloomington branch when I went to IU to get a perspective of what's branch life like. Every summer, every winter break, I'd come home. I'd work downtown in the main office, get the whole, I'm going to say corporate structure. I say that loosely because I don't let our people call our home office our corporate office because it sounds too big for what we really are. And better yet, we're a family-owned business. So what's the center of your family? Your home. So it's our home office. So really did that. My brother, who's the fireman, was currently working for us at the time. And in 2010, we bought a building out in Plainfield, and we opened a distribution center. So we sold off some of our property downtown, shifted the operations to a bigger operation to where we could actually distribute out of one location. That's kind of when he got the opportunity to go career as a fireman. I spent some time in purchasing, spent some time on the counter sales aspect of it. I said, I kind of I don't want to be a master of any one thing. I want to be a generalist of everything. I want to work in every department. I want to truly understand what these people do on a regular basis. So 2 years here, 3 years there, and really got that feeling to say, hey, when time comes that I have to make decisions on your behalf, I know what your life's like. Mm-hmm. And I can put myself in your shoes to say, well, I remember what it was like when I did that.
Yeah. Certainly rings true. I mean, we've got a handful of employees who've been with us for as long as we've been there.
Yeah.
So certainly we get that. Any benefits to when you worked in Bloomington to being able to keep the Natty Lights cold?
No, not at all. See, it's actually the Coke machine that has, Coke and Diet, Sprite, and then other. Just don't press the other one during the day.
Yeah.
7 o'clock in the morning. Like, don't hit other. It's not time yet. Let's wait till about 4 o'clock.
Nice. So you guys have been continuing to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about this before, but we're not cruise control kind of kids.
Oh, no.
We're constantly looking at the next thing and how do we keep evolving the business. How would you describe? So you described where the business has been in the past. How would you describe the business today?
So I took over day-to-day operation completely. Our last president retired. He kind of stepped out around February of 19. He said, I'm going to be here if you need me. Call me if you need help, but we'll let you run the show now. So February of 19 came, and I had kind of addressed everybody. And I said, look, I've got a few priorities here. I said, my first priority is our Fort Wayne market continues to explode. I said, I want to elevate Fort Wayne into a sub-distribution. I said, so we're gonna find new property up there. We're gonna make a much bigger outfit, and we're gonna blow that market up. That's priority one. Priority two is we had a branch in Elkhart, and Elkhart was about 6,000 square feet, but it was like our fourth largest branch by volume. So I said, second thing to address is Elkhart, and I said, then from there we see what happens. So 2019. Immediately started the search for Fort Wayne. I went from 12,000 square feet to 30. Moved that. We've got a sub-distribution center. Immediately jumped on, okay, what's available up in the Elkhart area? Nothing worth it. So we looked over in Mishawaka. I found a 20,000 square foot building in Mishawaka. I said, perfect, let's do that. So we moved that location from Elkhart over to Mishawaka into the St. Joe County area. So COVID was right in the middle of all of this, so that was the fun project. So last year, I got an opportunity to go through an acquisition of another company. Ultimately, it didn't quite go the way we wanted it to. was a friendly, I'm going to say a friendly competitor, somebody that we know very well. It would have brought 4 new locations on board with us. Somebody else came in with about 4 times as much cash and dropped it down and said, I'll take it. Okay. So that didn't go the way we wanted to, but it kept us busy, and it was a good learning experience. But what that showed our entire company, because I'm very transparent. Like, I'm not going to hide things behind the office door and say, hey, I'll tell you when you need to know. It's, if you want to know, I'm an open book. This is, how we operate affects everybody. So, I mean, it's got to be pretty quiet for me to keep it, internal. But that showed everybody that, hey, we're ready to grow. Mm-hmm. It's time to go. So when that ultimately didn't work out, we said, can we still go to Ohio? And I had some talks with some of our major manufacturers, and one of them was not on board yet, and that being American Standard. So we are the largest American Standard distributor in the state of Indiana. There's a section down by Evansville that we don't have in our territory, and a section up around the Gary area, up in the region. Yeah, the region. So that's kind of taken care of out of Chicago. But everywhere else, we are the exclusive distributor in Indiana. So, and then, of course, the Champaign area to the state line. So
the assumption is in Ohio, they
already have some people over there. So there are some issues. They weren't, in the particular market that we're talking about, they said, we aren't super happy, but we also haven't given our expectation to that distributor. So they said, let's talk in a year. If expectations are not being met, we can talk about that. But for now, it's off the table.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm one that says, hey, if I can't sell what I sell, if I can't do what I do to somebody over here because of an imaginary line, I don't really want to do that. That's a moral conflict for me. Say I can help you, but they say I can't. Yeah. So we said, okay, well, what else makes sense? Where else can we go? And we found a big hole in Greensburg. So down I-74 on the way to Cincinnati. Yeah. So I found some property and jumped on it immediately, and hope to have that open the mid-October.
Okay. So who is two-part question? Who's your typical customer? Mm-hmm. And then what was it about Fort Wayne and maybe to some extent Elkhart that was making those explode?
Sure. So our typical customer, we sell to residential and commercial contractors.
Okay.
But we also sell to entities that have their own maintenance teams. So we'd call them institutionals. Yeah. Grocery store chains, hospitals, people like Roche down the street. They have their own teams. We'll sell them the equipment, they can put it in.
Right.
So we don't sell to the general public. We don't sell to homeowners directly.
You sell a lot to property managers, maybe, or
sometimes. It depends on what their limitations are.
Yeah.
So if property management company comes through and says, yeah, we have a team that'll take care of this. Yeah, sure. But you could also get some property managers that come through and say, well, that guy changed his filter so he can install it.
Right.
That's not quite how that works. So that's a liability. We should probably not do that.
Yeah.
So we do our best to police it, but when it comes to the swings of the market, we, as far as heating and air is concerned, we started out as a refrigeration supply house, period. My great-grandfather had a brother, and they together did refrigeration repair. And they noticed that, well, it's hard to source parts and equipment, so they kind of split that off. And his brother kept the repair business, and my great-grandfather started the supply company. So that was in 1936, so right in the middle of the Depression, so that's great timing. So it was truly refrigeration work. Eventually we got into heating and air, but my grandfather, the president before me, they're both very much of the mindset of, I don't want to spend money to make money. And that is so much what residential heating and air is about. You got to have all of the advertising and all the co-op and everything else that comes with it. And refrigeration, when you have to have it, and you have to have it yesterday. So if you have it, you win. And people pay for now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more money to be made in refrigeration. Heating and air isn't that way. So it's taken a long time for it to get there. But that business has been the steady hand for us. Okay. So when it comes to things like COVID, we live in the residential replacement sector. We do not chase new construction. We hate new construction because it ebbs and flows so bad. Residential replacement, though, when COVID came, 2019, we planned, hey, 2020 is going to be a repair year. People are going to spend more money repairing. They're going to hold their cash. Potential recession could be on the horizon, but we don't know exactly.
Those were pre-pandemic guesses.
These are pre-pandemic guesses,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what happened was everybody said, go home, and everybody said, well, we're not going on vacation. We're not traveling. We don't have to spend this money. Let's make our house comfortable. Let's upgrade. So
where'd that crack come? Honey, that crack's been there for 10 years.
Exactly.
Oh, I
right?
just noticed it. Let's fix that.
So it flipped on a dime. So we're part of a buying group of privately owned distributors across the country. There's about 20, I think we're down to about 20 of us now. And we have kind of a distribution, I want to say advisor that works with our group. And I want to say it was in April of 20. He came and all of the principals were on a call, and he said, hear me now. This is a public health crisis. This is not a financial crisis, which means no matter what, people are going to still spend money. He said, whatever you do, don't slow down. Buy every piece of equipment you can get inside your building. If you can find another building, rent more space. He said, because there will come a time when all this is going to break loose. And when it does, he who has the inventory wins. So I heard him loud and clear. I know his success. I know his background. And I said, I trust him. And we literally filled every branch we possibly could. I took our inventory value from approximately 15 million to just shy of 30 during COVID. We went from having about $1.5 million on order at any given time to I've got 25 backlogged because we're just putting them out there, knowing how long we're just getting in line, right?
Yeah.
So since then, April of 20, we've had 4 big months, company record months. 2020 was a record year. 21 was a record year. 22 we're up 22% over last year. So, and it's all because we bought early.
Yeah.
We pay cash for our inventory. So we have all of that at our disposal. Now we all know, okay, price increase. So it's not real per se, dollars wise, but if we look at total units out the door, we're still seeing that growth.
Yeah, that I feel like no matter what industry that someone I've talked to is in, whether it be in the podcast forum or just out on the street almost, if you're in distribution of a tangible item, same story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That just from price increases on goods to stocking up, finding inventory, overstocking because you know that to your point or to the quote the gentleman had, he who has the inventory wins. That I think that sums up the last 24 months.
Yeah. Well, and it's so much so that when we, I said in, what was it? I think we officially moved in June of 20 out of Elkhart to Mishawaka.
Okay.
Everybody said, so, hey, are we selling the Elkhart property? I've got a few people that might be interested in.
It's an interesting time to move.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. I said, no, I'm gonna hold on to it. I bet we might need it. And so consequently, we're also going through a lot of DOE changes. The EPA is coming out and saying, hey, we have a lot of new regulations and whatnot. So these units can no longer be produced, which means we're integrating these new units, which, oh, by the way, are a lot more expensive because different components. So we stocked heavy on these. And I said, fill the barn. So that branch, essentially, it's alarmed, is full of units that are going to be turning here towards the fourth quarter because, hey, DOE's changing. Those units aren't being produced anymore. They can still be installed, but they're a hell of a lot cheaper than these new ones.
Right. Yeah.
So we've got that luxury to say, hey, I got an oversized storage unit here in this building. Yeah. I'm renting space from an employee who has a pole barn. and said, hey, this is my rodeo arena. He goes, but I've really wanted to finish it. I want to put concrete floors in it. I said, okay, I tell you what, I'll put concrete floors in it. It's mine for 2 years. Okay, perfect. Fill it.
It's also alarmed, has cameras,
exactly,
and packs of Dobermans wandering
exactly
around.
on his property. It's right behind his house. So yeah, you're not getting into it. But no, we're having to get so creative. We expanded on, I think it was in 2018, 2019, we expanded onto our distribution center to where we're in Plainfield. So we went from 60,000 square feet to 97,000. We're out of space. We're out of physical property.
Yeah. Did your vendors ever come back and say, okay, hey, here's this huge PO we're placing? Did they ever come back and say, we can't meet all that. We can only allocate so much?
Oh, every day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, what they'll do is they'll say, yeah, we'll take it. But
of course.
I kid you not. I have POs right now that we put in February of 21.
Okay.
Still open.
Still open.
Oh.
So we're a year and a half later, still not come in yet.
Do you get it still at the February 21 price?
I wish. that was the worst part. So, it was, I think it was in 20, so it was in 21, because 2020, everything was still kind of up in the air. People didn't really know. 21, they got a good handle on things, and they said, okay, so here's the deal. And it started out with like one or two. One or two had to break the mold, and then everybody followed suit. But they said, hey, so these units haven't been made yet, and I know you put them in 6 months ago, but it's going to have to be at today's price. When it's going to be at the price when it ships. Which I said, okay, for our stocking inventory, I get that. And as much as I hate it, I can't refute it, and
right.
I'll deal with it. What about this stuff that's already sold? Hey, these are special quotes that we did. They're sold to us.
Right.
And they said, well, nothing we can do. Sorry. So I said, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to honor the price to my customer because that's the ethical thing to do. And they said, good for you. Okay, well, that didn't work the way that didn't work the way we wanted it to, but and then we had to kind of set the precedent going forward that, hey, they're not, this is the price, and I hope we can honor it, but we got to put an asterisk on it saying
right.
if they won't honor it and it changes, then it's got to change.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's where I think that we did a lot better than some of our competitors because we kept that price. We stood behind them. We're not very transactional. We have, as far as our heating and air is concerned, we have a dealer base. So it locks those contractors in with us.
Okay.
We're only successful if they're successful. So we not only teach them sales, we teach them how to run their business. Everything from helping them stock their trucks to how to run the office, what profitability is about. Because a lot of these guys are technicians in the field, and they said, I could probably do that better than my boss. So they start their own business, and they don't really know what they're doing. So we have that vested interest in them, and we teach them to be successful. Those who listen usually turn out pretty well. There are other distributors that don't do that. They'll sell product to anybody who walks in the door, and we don't do that.
Yeah.
We find a partner, we find a partnering contractor, and we do, looking at market share of their territory where they service, we protect them. And say, hey, we're not going to sell to anybody who just walks in the door. This guy competes against you, but your town can only justify one dealer. We're not going to sell that product to him. We're going to sell it to you. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to residential product, commercial product, that's a whole different ballgame. But at least we have that connection there with those small, privately owned contractors.
Right.
So sticking on the topic of supply chain and particularly, somewhat availability, but particularly costing, what's today through rest of the year look like in your guys' world? Are things leveling off? Are you feeling like there's somewhat of a sign of relief to come? Or
No, I don't see that happening at all. No. I don't see, I think price increases are starting to be announced, but they're being announced for, hey, this is Q1. Starting next year, this is the new increase. We're starting to get those, as opposed to the last 2-3 years. It's just been, hey, effective tomorrow. Hey, we got to have another one. So in terms of number of increases, that's slowed down, but if anybody thinks that we're going to have rollbacks of pricing,
Right.
it's not going to happen. You know,
Yeah.
they
wasn't
might
asking about rollbacks.
No, yeah,
just
but
have you settled in a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say so, because the number of increases have stopped. I'd say we're starting to settle down, and I think that everybody's understanding of the times are here.
Yeah.
And they now, you know, at first people were just like, I can't believe we're having another one. Why can't we hold? Well, it's not us. It's, you know, we're just, don't shoot the messenger, but that's what we are. We're the messenger here.
Yeah.
And, you know, now that that's all understood, I think everybody's at a good point where they say, hey, we haven't had a price increase in 3 months. Things are going pretty well. you know, and it's bad that that's what we're saying, but that's the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
So
It's the chemical side is a similar story. So I imagine most of the inputs for you guys on material costs are on metals, I presume.
Metals and controls. You know, there's so much controls that, you know, whether it be control boards or a lot of the remote sensors and things like that. And the bad part about it is, you know, a lot of them, you have a product like American Standard. American Standard's made in Tyler, Texas. Most of them. Some of them are made in Trenton, New Jersey. But they're all U.S. assembled. But that doesn't mean they don't have components that are overseas.
Right.
And it could be a single expansion valve. That expansion valve is holding up the production of that furnace.
Yeah.
And everything else is ready, but that one thing. Then you get into things like compressors. And not only do we sell our compressors in new equipment, but we also sell a Blue Million compressors for replacement repair. Our replacement repair lead time, 8 to 12 weeks. Our compressor manufacturer is on the east side of Indianapolis. Doesn't matter where your location's at. Still not happening. OEMs get taken care of first, though. So they're 2 weeks or less.
Yeah.
Distributors are 8 to 12. There's big money there. I get it. I hate playing that game, but that's the world we live in. But, yeah, you could say, hey, if it's 2 weeks here for this one component, it's 2 months for that. So these aren't going to be made until X time. So that's why I sort of talked about, you know, hey, we got stuff on order from February of last year.
Yeah.
For maybe something that's so tiny, but because all of this is regulated through EPA, you know, we don't have a choice, so they can't just say, oh, perfect, we'll just throw that part on it. Nope. If you want that part to be on it, which is maybe the same thing, it's got to be recertified. Then you have to go through the whole process of getting that recertified, re-cleared, has to be a new model number. It's not an easy... what should be something really easy is not.
Going through that right now with something, and then something that should be super simple, and everyone even on both sides knows. Here's the protocol we have to follow.
Yep. And that's exactly it. Because that's why it says, well, why can't you substitute the components? You're right. Why can't we? I'd ask the same question, but it's not reality. But then on top of all of this, component issues, look at everybody's employment rates, unemployment rates.
Right.
Look at how many people can't find qualified workers. So right now we're also fighting quality issues because they were willing to put anybody on an assembly line who's willing to turn a wrench. Now we get products in and a motor mount's not screwed on. Okay, so when they fire that up and the motor starts wobbling and falls out and damages everything else, you got a bad motor, you got a bad bracket, you got a bad fan blade. Did it tear anything else up inside?
Right.
You know, and so we've got those issues. We've got freight line issues. Freight companies, if you work for a freight company out there right now, I'm sorry, but they're the worst. We got a unit in a couple weeks, about 2 weeks ago, refrigeration unit that came from Georgia, came off. I'm like, man, it looks a little rough. It was unbanded, which, okay, that's already a problem. Slid the cover off. It's upside down. Which means it had come unbanded, come apart, and the freight company put a box back on top of it. And it's just like...
they may not notice.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the reality of what we're dealing with.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're talking to the manufacturer about this, saying, hey, you know, the freight companies that you guys are using, and they said, well, that's in this region. We have multiple freight companies we deal with, and everybody's just as bad. Like, oh, so it's a lose-lose scenario. No matter what we do, we're out.
Yeah, I bought a new grill, back in February, and just received was a cart and then the grill head, the ship separate. And what are we at, August now? So end of July, I finally get it. Like they finally say, hey, it's shipping. I'm like, okay, so it's been however many months. The cart arrives, and they have the box on a pallet and a cardboard cone that sits on top of the box that says "Do not crush."
Yeah.
The only way I could read that it said "Do not crush" was after I uncrumpled the cone to see what it said.
Yeah.
And then removed.
And that's the stack.
Maybe they
Remove the
thought
box.
it said "Please crush."
Yeah.
Removed the box, and the cart was just like all mangled.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And the next week, the grill head showed up, and the metal strapping was just sort of dangling off. I'm like, well, that's not a good sign. And the shrink wrap, I'm like, we ship things day in and day out. I know what something should look like shrink wrapped. This doesn't look like. So I
Why is it shrink wrapped?
There were these two holes dead center of the box, just spaced out enough. I'm like, well, those look like
Forks.
So I was like, all right, and I didn't let the driver go. Thankfully, I just kind of know this, even though it was a residential delivery. I'm like, can you just I'm taking pictures.
Yeah.
I said, take note of all of this, and then let's lift it. And once you know, like dead through the
all the way through the
lid
metal.
of the grill head, where the metal was just all. So I got to wait a few more weeks.
I was say at least.
Yeah, and the next cart that came in was also damaged, but thankfully it was cosmetic on the back. I'm like, well, I'll keep it.
I'll
and
live
you're
with
gonna
it.
discount me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
For
that was
sure.
fun.
Yeah, and we deal with that.
And
every day.
the company was like, we deal with this all the time. You would not believe the amount of returns of product coming back because do not stack, and it ends up on the bottom of a pile.
Yep. Well, and the bad part is a lot of them, they'll come through and say, hey, you know what? When we load those up, I mean, it's we're at the factory, we see the stuff, it's pristine. It's not that driver, it's cross docks. When it comes in, it hits Indianapolis. Okay, we're at a cross dock facility now. We're going to transfer it from this truck to that truck. They don't care. I mean, it's literally. I mean, it's like some of the guys that saying UPS. You work in the UPS hub. They're just taking and throwing boxes. And
You've got to wonder what the claim rate right now is for these freight companies. How much they're spending. It's unbelievable.
Well,
let alone what they're paying for. Paying to keep people in the warehouse and in the truck.
I'll never forget. So, it was my first year of grad school, and I did. I got my master's from Texas A&M, and it was in industrial distribution. And in my class, there's all sorts of different industries and different governmental, people that are there even. And one guy said, I work for Amazon Logistics. I'm like, oh, okay. So you deal with UPS and FedEx and things like that. He goes, well, actually, we're in the process of starting our own delivery. Really? He goes, oh yeah, it's gonna be huge. We're already testing it in New York and a few other places, but it's, we're tired of using the carriers because of the damage, and it's gonna be huge. We're just like, yeah, that's gonna go over real well. And by God, was he right? Because they just exploded, and now you can't go 2 or 3 miles down the road without seeing an Amazon van.
Right.
So, but that's exactly what he did, and he said, we're gonna do it ourselves because we think we can do it better. And when you have those claims, you're not having to fight the carriers anymore. You do it yourself, write it off, and move on.
Right.
Yeah.
So
you're born and raised in Indy. You got your undergraduate degree from IU Bloomington.
Yep.
And then somehow you decide, I'm going to go to where I don't know, I can barely understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
To become an Aggie.
Yeah, exactly.
Where did that even enter the equation?
So they actually are pretty prevalent in our industry. They kind of pioneered distribution in the world, really. I imagine your guys' industry. Are you familiar with Brenntag? Okay, so they partner with Brenntag super heavily, and so they follow Brenntag all over the world in different markets. And a couple of the guys who started that program off literally have their hands in everybody from Brenntag to Lockheed Martin. They were a huge proponent of Zappos and Harley Davidson and a few of those major entities. So they supported the heating and air and refrigeration industry space. And I found the program, and somebody had said, hey, Richard Cook down here at Johnson Supply, he sent one of his people through it. They're from Houston, so they're close.
Right.
Call them and get some feedback. So I called him, and I said, how applicable is this really to what we do? And he goes, 100%. He goes, if you get an opportunity to join, you do it. So I did blindly. It was about 80% remote. So I had to spend, I think, 4 weeks between campus and a global distribution trip that we took down in Texas. So I get down there, and I think there's like 65 people in my class. I'm one of 3 from our industry. And so I was like, oh, shit, this could be a mistake. I've got people in there from the oil industry, power, multiple military people that were, which I guess I didn't think about when you're talking distribution. Doesn't matter what's in the box, or are we distributing people? One of the guys was a colonel in the Army, and he was I think he was the associate director of FEMA in the southern half of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, gee, okay, wow. Yeah.
He has to know logistics.
Absolutely. Major shipping freight, like freighter containers going overseas and things like that. And I was like, wow, I'm small fish in massive ponds here. Lockheed Martin, I said big sponsor of them. They had, I think, 6 people in that program, my year alone, let alone. And, it was probably one of the best decisions I've made in my life. It was so eye-opening to see everybody has the same type of issues. It doesn't matter what's in the box.
Right.
You're going to do it the same way. You're going to have the same issues. You're going to, so, and grad school is so much different than undergrad. You've got, at least for us, it was so much in group work, doing things together, working problems together, with people who were paying to be there. Like they wanted to be there. Mom and dad aren't paying for them to go spend 4 years to party in Bloomington, which we saw quite a bit of.
Saw it, like witnessed it from a distance.
Yes,
certainly.
Because I never take part in anything like that.
No.
Campus courts, what? No.
Like when I was in the library and I look out the window and people walking by, that's what I would notice.
That's it. So,
A&M has 2 distinguished alum. Well, they have many distinguished alumni, I'm sure, but 2 that popped out. I think I sent Joe a text recently. If you ever spent any time on the road and you hit a Buc-ee's, especially if you're going south of here.
Oh, yeah.
I had never heard of them until we're driving to Florida, and I see them, and there's like 30 billboards.
Way alive.
So whoever's in charge of your marketing, kudos. First of all, they're pretty. Most of them are pretty funny. It is I'm not gonna say truck stop because there's no trucks are allowed, but it is a convenience store / gas station on steroids, and
slash restaurant.
Yeah, the business case study is crazy. I've probably been to 5 of them now. They're always slammed regardless of what time, and I'm sitting here thinking, God, I wish I owned part of that. Right. And then so I'm waiting for my daughter to come out, and I just did a quick little Google search, like, who is it still privately held? Who owns this? First article I come up is, here's the 2 guys that started it. And, oh, by the way, they just made a $50 million gift to Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, things are going pretty well.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's an amusement park where you can also get gas.
Well, minus the rides, but look, they make their own food there, so you're not buying a sushi that's been sitting there for 6 months.
So they've got. I mean, it's your traditional convenience store, but over here you have a full scale restaurant. Like they make legitimate Texas barbecue.
Yeah, people are driving there to buy the food, and then they have a section of the parking lot where you literally just park your car. They provide dog bags of your dog there, and people are just hanging out like on their
at the
car
gas station.
Eating.
Yeah, they also have. I mean, it's the biggest general store you've ever seen. I mean, take a Cracker Barrel times like 8 or 10 and in a row, and it's just one big section over here. So it's like, okay, so Mom's going shopping. We're gonna go over here and eat, and we'll meet back at the registers here in about half hour. I mean, that's
literally probably 150 to 200 gas pumps.
Yeah,
I mean it's crazy. It's massive. So anyway, kudos to you guys for doing that. Let's talk future. What we talked about the rest of the 2022 is as it is currently slammed.
Yep.
What's the crystal ball look like for 2023? Any guesses?
I'd like to hope we can slow down.
Yeah.
And I say slow down, like let's catch up. Let's let inventory come in. I mean, I think we're still, at least the pace we're on, we're turning inventory where our contractors are still, I mean, they're still scheduled out 2-3 months, some of them.
Right.
So, nobody ever says, hey, let's have less business. No, but let's see if we can catch up a little bit. let some of those open orders come down, let manufacturing slow down. But I almost feel like this is our new normal. You know, ordering for 8 months from now is the new normal for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to wish we could get back on the 2 to 3 week schedule, but I don't see it.
Right. We've had multiple conversations recently. You and I had one maybe 2 weeks ago. I had another one this morning. If they're at 125 to 130% right now, so maybe next year it backs off 25%. And most people said, "Oh my God, we're going to back off 25%. Holy crap!" He's like, "But it's coming back to 100."
But yeah, you're still operating at capacity,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I mean, that would be
not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, not
se.
at all. Not at all. You know, and I mean, if we could, I actually had this conversation this morning. One of my guys in my warehouse said, "You know, I don't understand that. Why is it we can't find people and you know in today's market?" And I said, "Well, let's look at it. Let's be real. Indianapolis. Let's just look at Indianapolis." I said, "You drive down Ronald Reagan Parkway," and I said, "What do you see?" He goes, "Distribution center after distribution center after distribution center." I said, "Right." I said, "So what are you doing?" All these businesses are coming here. Our population is what it is. But you have all these new businesses that are here now. So as people start to fill those, what are we left with? Nothing. You know, we don't have qualified people that are unemployed. Right. So you try to find somebody, you're stealing somebody, and then it's a matter of, okay, well, how does the private company steal somebody who works for an Amazon? You know, a major freight carrier who they work inside and they're making big money because they've got this big name behind them.
Right.
And that's a fine line to walk. And that's when we get the opportunity, it's usually not very hard. But it's getting that look. It's getting that opportunity for somebody to look at us and say, "You know what, I'd like to talk to you."
Right.
So the challenges we all face.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We've got
It's like get in line.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Chris, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
We appreciate all the background scoop on Duncan Supply and the forecasting for where you guys are headed. Continued success to you and the rest of the family at Duncan. And thanks to all of you guys for joining us on today's episode of the Industrious Podcast. We appreciate you listening. And if you happen, again, to be watching on the Assessa YouTube channel and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Hit that little notification bell, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for joining us, and be industrious.